Tony?
With a quorum present, I'd like to call the Co-op Budget Committee to order at 6:34 p.m. Tonight's meeting will represent our February meeting. We're meeting a little bit out of order, where we normally meet on the fourth week of every month. Due to school vacation weeks, budget hearings, and whatnot, we've shifted our order, and we're meeting this evening. The agenda was posted in advance as necessary. I'd like to introduce myself, Darlene Mann, and the members present this evening, who include Tom Enright, Melanie LeVay, Raul Blanchet, Tony Sinizzi, and Dave Blinn. And Brian Rader. Dave Blinn is absent this evening with an excused absence. Tom Solon also has an excused absence as he's attending another community meeting this evening. I'd like to welcome our BA, Lance Flamino. So with that in mind, there is a flag present. We could still technically do the Pledge of Allegiance. The agenda, that's so funny, I just saw it up there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, great.
Savor those words.
With no public present, we'll skip over public input. Our meeting observer this evening is Tony. And we'll move to the approval of minutes from our January meeting. Just 1 second. So, wait.
Excuse me.
At this point, what I'll do is take a motion to approve amended minutes. I'll list the itemized amendments that Dawn included based on input from across the committee, and we'll go from there. So I'll take a motion to approve the amended minutes of the January meeting from Tony, seconded by Raul. And the amendments are as follows. On page 4, line 30, we're placing ADA, the acronym, with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Page 7, line 31 is to correct the spelling of the word budget. Page 11, line 1, to put quotation marks around masters. Page 11, line 9, replace the compound word select board with select board in 2 words. Page 11, line 45, residents should be pluralized to residences. So those are the amendments. Anyone have any others that they'd like to make?
In Brookline, select board is 1 word.
Oh, that's so funny. Well.
All right, that's fine, whatever.
Okay, there we are.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, all those in favor of the minutes as amended, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tony, 6. Wonderful. 600. Great, thank you. No public input. Okay, so tonight's meeting is, the agenda is comprised of a warrant overview, potentially an update on some of the collective bargaining issues surrounding HESA, and a little bit of a legislative update. The legislative update was something we couldn't get to in January. There are a lot of things happening. Not sure how to manage it all, but I'm going to go through some of the highlights.
Was that the 212 pages?
Yeah, exactly. We'll go through some of the highlights.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And we'll maybe think about a process and some processes going forward about how to track things and whatnot. But I at least wanted to bring some things to everyone's attention. So I'd like to start with the overview of the warrant. So just give me 2 seconds here. Where's my warrant? There it is. The reason why I'm bringing this up again is we spent a lot of time on this at our January meeting. The first article is the SAU budget. Nothing has changed. Article 2 is the operating budget. Nothing has changed. Article 3 is the HESA agreement. Nothing has changed. We have Article 4, which is the maintenance expendable trust. No change. Article 5, the contingency, no change. And I believe we had Article 6 last month when we met regarding the open enrollment wording. What I wanted to review this evening in advance of the public hearing next week are the petition articles that have been added to the warrant. So a lot of those are ones we've seen for anywhere from, 2 to 10 years. There is one that is new, but I just wanted to take a moment, again, before next week's public hearing, just kind of bring them forward, see if we can have a discussion about that, and then we can kind of move on to other business. So Article 7, just so that next week isn't the first time you hear about these articles. So Article 7 would be to see if the cooperative school district will vote to require the Hollis Brookline School Board to prominently display current and previous year state assessment scores and state rankings on the school district website header, visible on every page, with said information to be updated within 30 days of the official release of the scores by the New Hampshire Department of Education. So this does not appropriate funds. The school board will make a recommendation, and I don't see any reason why we need to make a recommendation as a budget committee. It is something that's considered advisory, so even if it were to pass, it doesn't necessarily compel the district to take an action per se, but this was discussed earlier this week at the meeting at the Hollis Budget Committee, that because the same article appears on the Hollis warrant, I don't know if it appears on the Brookline one, but the district, and Lance, please jump in and add pertinent details. But the information that was shared at the meeting earlier this week is that the SAU is working on a dashboard that'll be on the website, and it's slated to be introduced over the summer. It's been a work in progress throughout at least this school year. So regardless of the direction of this petition article, the district, the SAU is moving forward with that dashboard. That will include, I'm not exactly sure of all of the details, I'm sure it will prominently display test scores. I don't know, Lance, if you have more information on what.
Standardized test scores and rankings are planned to be available there, so what this is asking for will be available, just not on the header and on every site and on every page, so it'll be available. I don't know exactly what it's looked like, I haven't seen it yet, but it's something that was already in the works prior to receiving this, something I just want to make a little bit more easily accessible so people don't have to hunt for it.
Perfect.
So for people who allege or have issues with quality of education, that would be sufficient data to be able to draw conclusions, right?
I would think so, yes, and then, I mean, any information that's going to be on there is already publicly available, but it can be challenging to find if somebody becomes more familiar with our website. It's probably easier than hunting around the Department of Education's website to get it.
I appreciate all of that. I think it's a great idea, but to assume that the people in the town will understand what it is they're looking at may be a problem, given that the students that are taking all of these advanced AP courses, honors courses, and so on, opt out. And maybe it's not sufficient enough that we get a 0 because the percentage of kids still taking is still high enough. However, it does skew the ranking down if you take some of the best and brightest out.
There is information, and to Lance's point about it being kind of difficult to find, there is information actually on the DOE website that talks about something called the 95% rule.
Yes.
Which says that if 95% of the students aren't participating, then the district is penalized, and kind of goes through some information about that. So that information is there. Maybe, I don't know the plan for the rollout. I would envision, this is just pure conjecture on my part, that it would be a topic at school board meetings once it's available so that board members understand the data. We could ask for a similar explanation at a future budget committee meeting. Maybe it has the potential to direct people to the DOE website or to, there's something there called, and it's a good topic for a meeting for us to have, something called iPlatform, and where there's loads, just so much information about test scores, finances, you name it, you can find, if you can get to that platform, you can find it and work on navigating your way around it. There's some excellent information, and that website actually allows you to go in and compare district to district to district. So you could put in the co-op, you could compare it to, Oyster River, Exeter. You could look at the elementary districts and you could compare it to, other elementary schools. And it is it's actually kind of interesting to just see how, in a district like ours, having gone there and looked at it, you would readily see that we just don't have the participation on a student basis that other districts with high schools, might get 98 or 99% participation. And on the science test part for the last time through, we were in the mid-60s. So you can see there's an absolute difference between just participation levels before you even get to,
Yes.
outcomes and things like that. But, those could be, we could ask about if part of that dashboard includes links or references to other parts of the DOE website or something like that. I'm sure it's been thought out and well thought out and will be shared because it is something that continues to be brought up, and I'm sure the administrators are anxious to kind of
Can I
share the
just
information.
echo what Tony said, that I just want to ensure that the numbers that we are giving are not inflated or deflated with people who don't take the test. So maybe we need to have a number that says opt out, these many people opt out, and somehow an explanation of how we get to our math.
This is like creating a survey. How many units do you need to have some level of accuracy? And really the performance shouldn't be based on the total population of the state. It should be based out of the many who took the exam.
Right.
How did they do? You know what I mean?
Right, it should be out of the many who took the exam, but it's not.
Right. And
So
we need to.
It can also be skewed if the people who don't take the exam tend to be, your better students or your worse students. Either
Yeah.
way,
Yeah,
it's not necessarily reflective of the school as a whole if there is that sort of bias in there.
But still,
No,
it does skew it, because if you say if it's the worst, and I hate to think of it that way, but we're not all born equally as
Right,
much as we, and some of us have aptitudes in one area and not in another. But if you opt out of the sciences, most likely you're opting out not because you can't do the sciences. However, the type of exam you get in the sciences, some students may have taken those studies and others may not. So that's a reason not to take it, because you may be in chemistry and not environmental sciences. And the other thing is, still, if you're getting the best of the best, not taking it, it does skew the results down.
I'm going to ask, as we're kind of spending a little bit of time on this, are we even going to make a recommendation on this?
We're not,
No.
no.
Yeah.
No.
No, it was more just to kind of share information so that we're kind of not surprised.
I'm good with that, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
I like the idea of us not taking a position unless it's directly related to budget.
Agreed. Or has a significant budget impact.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. With that in mind, we'll move on to Article 8. This one has been a perennial favorite for the last, I think it's 10 years.
Let me guess.
My oldest daughter had recently turned 18 right before the March meeting, or the day of the election. This the first time this was brought forward. It was put to a ballot vote. Maybe as a result of the March meeting, I'm not exactly sure, but she had just registered to vote, and when this next one came up, there was a school board member's child that was in the same position. It was the first time they were going to be voting, and this was defeated by 2 votes.
oh, wow.
So I like to say that they had it the first year, it was defeated by 2 votes. I think that's the closest the vote has ever been on the following. Shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 40:13, known as SB2, to allow official ballot voting on all issues before the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School District on the second Tuesday of March? I will say that was 2 votes in Hollis. I don't know what the vote was in Brookline, because the vote took place there as well. So on this one, like I said, this has been, has come forward, I think it's for 9 of the last 10 years. It's been defeated, which is why it keeps coming back. And as a budget committee, we've gone back and forth. There have been years where we've taken a position, there have been years that we did not. So we can have a discussion about whether as a committee we feel like we would like to put our recommendation toward it, and if not, we'll just bypass that.
I'll throw out that the Brookline School District has SB2. We now have a petition warrant article to repeal SB2. We'll see how it goes.
If I could be mistaken on this, but I thought there was several RS at the state level on SB2
There are.
that were voted down. I believe they were voted down
So
already.
the way it's being presented now is the way, the motion to adopt it you used to be able, based on the law, to make a motion at the meeting and request a ballot vote. Then there was a legislative change that said it had to be a ballot vote. Then there was a legislative change that said you have to vote on a change of your structure, your legislative structure, in the method at which you currently have, which is town meeting. There is a law, a House bill in the list that I shared that will require it to be a ballot vote. But that doesn't affect us now. We're meeting in March. If they were to sign anything or whatever, we're moving forward
Yep.
with our regular process.
Thank you.
I would like to weigh in on it if we can, if we all agree. I think it's important, so.
Okay, all right. We'll proceed then and make a recommendation after the public hearing next week. Article 9, shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 32:5-E and implement a budget cap whereby the school board or budget committee shall not submit a recommended budget that is higher than $27,500 per pupil cost times the average daily membership and residence of the school district as of October 1st of the year immediately preceding the proposed budget year, plus an annual increase for inflation using CPIU for the Boston, Cambridge, Newton, Mass, New Hampshire area, published by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics as of October 1st, requires a 3/5 majority. I very strongly feel that the Budget Committee should be making a recommendation on this, and while it isn't a direct raise and appropriate article, it does have a financial impact on the budgets going forward.
Do we know how the 27.5 was derived?
Raul, I'm reading you the petition that was submitted. That's all I have.
Okay.
We would just have a lot more money to spend.
That's what.
Not if we get less money.
Well, the point is, they're looking at 27.5, and we're not close to 27.5
exactly.
per student right now. So the whole thing doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, the numbers don't seem to be fitting in my head. And I don't know where they're getting, who wrote this up and why it's there, because it's incorrect. If they started off where our numbers are, typically around 22,000 per student, and said, set the cap there, I could understand it. I'm not sure that I'd be in favor of it, but I could understand it. If it's mentioning a number that is more closer to the state average, we're below that. I'm lost. I
Well,
don't know what to say.
you know, I'm not going to be able to put any, input behind what the logic would be for all of these petition warrant articles due to a legislative change. The primary petitioner will have 10 minutes to speak to each of these.
So do we know, so we will not see the data or the rationale behind that until the
The
meeting?
primary petitioner will have 10 minutes to present the reason
Okay.
behind the petition and whatever that means.
So it will be a
whatever that
surprise
is.
on that day.
Well,
Well,
this is a good time to bring up what I'd like to bring up is there any reason we still can't table these? Like we've been doing, because they're not school board related, and we're supposed to be at a school district, we're supposed to be at a district meeting voting on things brought forward by the school district, not this crap.
So I have brought that up to the moderator, and the opinion of council is that because there's a piece of legislation
Oh, man.
that stipulates the minimum, the time allowed, that my understanding is you'd have to hear up to 10 minutes of the presentation.
So you'd listen to the presentation, but it could be tabled after.
I would leave that to the rules of the
To-
meeting as
yeah.
Drew brings it forward. and
So,
as they're approved through the legislative body.
boy, I wish I were gonna be there, because I would fight back on that one.
And
I
I can't guarantee somebody won't ask about that at the meeting, because these have been I'll call them hot button items that have by and large been bypassed and tabled
Yeah.
on an annual basis because people, maybe you heard them previously or, for whatever reason. I'm sure it will come up and I'll leave it to the rules of the meeting, the moderator and like legal counsel to kind of address it. But that's my understanding so far.
Good reason not to,
Not to go to England?
no, not to do this anymore. I mean, this
Somebody's
just,
gotta do it.
well, this is 50 or 60 minutes of
50 minutes.
presentation.
Yes, yeah.
And then,
And
this
then on
is 2
voting.
hours worth of stuff before we can all go home at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
I mean, it is really a very straightforward, aside from the petition articles, it's a very straightforward warrant this year, so this would have been probably our shortest meeting in history. Aside from anything that's controversial about the budget itself or the SAU budget, it was really pretty direct. There really wasn't a lot. There were no bonds, there were no leases, there were no kind of
Right,
extra
right,
things.
but-
So it would have been a very, I would say, simple warrant for the body to evaluate.
I could add the 27.5, I don't know where that number came from and wouldn't want to speculate, but I think there is some confusion about where the cost per people would come from, whether that's how the state reports it, which is ours is significantly lower than that, or is it the entire operating budget divided by enrollment, in which case it is a vastly different number and much higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
So
why,
it could be limited.
and that's why to say, yes, the 27.5, it absolutely could be limiting, so.
And in deflation year as well. you know.
Okay, so we'll take my understanding is, with the public hearing next week, for any of these petition articles, they have to have a public hearing in both Hollis and Brookline. So the meeting next week will serve as the public hearing for these articles, and I believe the next day is the public hearing in Brookline.
So are you saying that the petitioner will be there to present these?
I don't know.
So,
We'll
but
have
that's gonna be our
In
joint
the-
meeting with the
I'll-
select board to
I'll
go
say
over and
in
vote.
the majority of previous years, I do not believe the petitioner has been at the meeting. There have been 1 or 2 occasions where that has happened, but past
I
history
didn't
is
know.
that there haven't been. So the primary petitioner hadn't been identified, and nobody gave a presentation on any of these. So they may just be read.
Oh, I wasn't even aware that we'd done that much. I guess we would have had to have taken a position.
So I believe the way,
Time is
if I
that meeting?
recall last year,
Next week?
Yeah, that's public.
I think we've
It's at 6:30.
read them and
Okay.
had taken a position, but I think because of the timing of receiving them, our public hearing is later than it normally is. And I think that's what happened last year. I think the date for receiving petitions was after our public hearing. That
Yeah,
might have
yeah,
happened.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
And so we needed the separate dates for the public hearing. I just don't recall if I even attended or if there was a presentation at either. And
That's what's happening with the Brookline
Yeah.
meeting. The deadline for submission of petition warrant articles was too late for us to publicly notice it in time to have it at the public hearing. So we did present what we had there, and now we're having a
Another
public hearing after the deliberative session.
yeah, which is allowed strangely, so.
I'm just thinking of this guy's legal position, and I'm getting more and more pissed off.
Okay, well, we'll be taking a position on Article 9.
I won't be there, so
I know
let me
that.
When do we take a
vent
position?
right here.
We will do that at the public hearing next week. We'll take positions on anything we're identifying as.
And we do that as a body or individual?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll take the vote the same way, and we'll
Okay.
it'll form our recommendation as the budget committee. So the school board will have their recommendations as well, and we'll do ours, and sometimes the board takes their positions in advance of the meeting, sometimes they do it at the same time that we do it. We've done it both ways, so I don't know what the plan is next week.
Just go
Tom,
along
you
for
have
the
my
ride.
sympathies.
Huh?
You have my sympathies.
Well, it's a way to drive us into SB2, this junk.
It is the
Right.
place.
Yeah.
That is the point.
Want to get everybody aggravated and...
Listen,
Question on that, though. So we have our meetings on weekday nights. Why is that? Could we move it to a Saturday if we wanted to? Well, not, when I say we, I mean the school board, not us.
I mean, I think anything was possible. I know that there was a lot of discussion about how to make it work with, because we need the registrars of the checklist available and didn't want to have meetings, you know, right after election days, which are long days for those groups and things like, there were so many issues that were tabled, or brought onto the table at that point. But, yeah, and as it turned out, I think Hollis and Brookline town meetings are on the same Saturday. And I think having it on a Saturday versus a day during the week, I think there's community input either way. If you're doing it on a Saturday, it's another Saturday, you're having a meeting, we just, you know, we're doing it for the town. If you're doing it, you know, during the week, well, now, you know, there are young children, there'll be childcare, but how late can they really stay up? And so there are all kinds of reasons that go into it, and, you know, availability of the school. I think last year,
I'm just curious.
having a midweek meeting meant one of our playoff games should have been a home game in our own gym. The kids had to play elsewhere, you know, things like that. All of those types of issues come up as well. So. Okay, so that was Article 9 on the budget cap. Article 10 is, shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 32:5V-B requiring the annual budget and all special warrant articles having a tax impact as determined by the school board shall contain a notation stating the estimated tax impact of the article. So this is the tax impact on the article itself. We have taken a position on this one pretty consistently. It has, I don't know that it's ever gone to a vote. I think we've heard both sides. We've tabled it, meaning the legislative body has tabled it.
Which in itself is a vote.
Yeah, so, as a budget committee, we've pretty consistently adopted, you know, made a recommendation on it, and kind of put that forward.
Can I ask, I've heard the reasoning before of not having the tax impact, because the numbers may change and it won't be accurate, is that correct?
There are any number of reasons why not to do it, including the context of, you know, what's being put forward and things like that.
Would that be another task on the business administrator and the SAU to come up with estimates?
Well, we estimate it as a matter of course for all of the districts, and we share that information in the presentations that we put forward and are posted on the
Right.
on the website. So we it's not like we're hiding it. We're definitely
Yeah.
putting it out there and providing, you know, comparisons and things like that. Okay. Article 11, shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 32:5-B and implement a tax cap whereby the governing body or budget committee shall not submit a recommended budget that increases the amount to be raised by local taxes this year's base that is higher than the prior fiscal year's actual amount of local taxes raised last year's base, adjusted for inflation using the inflation index CPIU for the Boston, Cambridge, Newton, Mass, New Hampshire area published by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the change in attendance in accordance with RSA 32:5-B, Roman numeral 1-B. This is another one I would suggest the Budget Committee take a position on because, as you know, establishing a tax cap is, tax impacts are usually kind of the end result. While we keep it in mind as we're developing and working with the administration, it's
So what they're asking is not to be higher than the prior year. So,
it's adjusted by, the prior year adjusted by CPI and the change in attendance.
So how does that compare to the other warrant article that sets up the limit to
So-
27.5.
So that
The
one's,
implications.
the other one is on the budget. So 32.5 originally set parameters that were, it's really addressing how you present information, and it was always addressing how you would implement a tax cap. Legislation was added to add the budget cap in as a part of the RSA. So now you have tax cap and budget cap within the same RSA, and they're two very different things.
Right.
So you can have a situation where the budget cap you've established could result in something that exceeds the tax cap that would have been established. So they could work against one another.
So, but nobody's bothered to say, take the higher of the two or the smaller of the two or anything like that? They haven't gamed this
You
whole
would-
thing
you
to
would-
figure
you would-
out,
Then you would be bound by the lower of the two. So.
I mean, that's the
however,
intent that they
what-
have, but it's still ambiguous, right?
Well, if you have to meet, if one side gets you here and the other side gets you here, you have to be bound by the one that yields the lower result, like
We asked legal about it briefly, and that was the result. Yeah, you have to be compliant with both, which means the most restrictive
Right.
one
They
would
both,
Yeah,
if
win.
they
So-
both pass, right?
Correct, if they both.
if they both
Yeah.
passed, yes, if they both passed.
So is this kind of forcing you in to do more bonds and long-term financing?
It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
because the tax cap is on the full budget, not just the operating, that's the other thing. The language used to say that the cap itself could only be on the operating budget. Now it's on the full budget. So the size of the entire warrant, that would include bonds and things like that. And the override provision is, I believe, a 3/5 override. So if you do then submit a budget that were to be in excess of the tax cap identified, you would need a 3/5 majority to pass the budget that would override the tax cap.
So that's also in the legislature?
That's in the RSA.
The
That's
RSA?
not, it doesn't need to be in the petition article because it's in the statute.
But that needs to be conveyed, because that adds more restrictions and makes it more difficult to, takes away flexibility from managing the crisis,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, also, with the amount of money that we are not getting from the state, that could put us in a very, it could compromise our schools. And Lord knows I don't want to pay any more taxes, because we're paying enough. But if we get less money from the state, then we have less money to, support our schools. So this sounds like a bit dangerous.
When we get less money from the state, I think, you used if?
Yeah, well, because we are getting less money.
Oh, now
Yeah,
I
we are.
understand.
Yes, we are getting less money, and, we will get less and less.
Okay, so that would be the end of the warrant, unless Article 12 is to transact any other business. So by the time we have our meeting also, every other meeting will be completed, and the elections will have taken place as well. So we are the last meeting on the calendar for this cycle. Okay, so, again, no bond hearing or anything like that. So that's the warrant. We can't add any more petition articles, but petition articles can be amended. There are certain articles that can't be, like the SAU budget, but petition articles can be amended, so. if
The
we-
SAU budget can't be amended?
No. It's a straight vote. There, it has a default, so there's an amount identified in an adjusted, I use defaults really, an adjusted budget. Those two numbers are present. Nothing can be amended, and if it fails, then you get the adjusted budget.
But our operating budget can be adjusted. Okay.
Could be amended.
Not that I want to do that, but it happened in Brookline.
Yeah.
But we didn't do that, so.
Okay, so that's our warrant. Let's see, what's next on the agenda? Oh, next on the agenda was HESA, so we do have part of the warrant does include the second year of the contract. As we previously discussed, there was a request because of the increase in rates for Insurance, there's language in the contract that says if the rates exceed an increase of 10%, the union has the right to request an additional negotiation. I know that's been ongoing. We didn't have any information the last time, Lance. I'm not sure what you can add at this point.
I can't add a whole lot, but I can offer a little bit, and I think
Okay,
give some context.
that'd be
I thi-
great.
And I think the overarching piece is there's going to be no fiscal impact. If there's any fiscal impact, it could be a slight savings for the district, actually. And the way to do this was working with Health Trust to look at other plan options, and we had done a little bit of this ahead of time, just because we were negotiating in Brookline earlier this year. So we have a tentative agreement. It hasn't been signed yet, so I'm being a little bit vague, so I apologize for that. But it seems to be a good solution for both the support staff and the district. So they'll have more healthcare plan options, but the plan that already exists remains. And for many staff members, if they were to choose to make the switch, it can work out and be a financial positive for them. So it kind of negates the fact that we had a 15.1% increase. Certain plans maybe wouldn't have worked out financially for the person enrolling as it was, but because there were some offsets to district costs, we could make them whole. So folks would be able to choose to stay with the plan that went up 15.1% if they like it and they're tied to it. That option remains, and that's what we're budgeted for. But they'll have additional options that might suit them and their family needs better, and it won't have a negative impact on the finances of the district.
I didn't understand that. I thought that there was a cap on the amount contributed. So if that cap stays in place, how does the employee get made whole?
There are additional plans available that are significantly cheaper. So the cap,
No, I heard that part.
the cap could exceed the total cost of the plan, in which case the district would be saving money.
So maybe I misunderstood you. So there would be difficulty with an employee staying with their current plan. It would cost them significant money.
Correct.
Okay.
So really, a big part of our negotiations were we wanted to find solutions that didn't have a financial impact, especially given the timing of these negotiations. But we also recognize that a lot of our support staff, if they're enrolling in healthcare, it is a big portion of their income, even with the district contribution, especially with those increases. So finding a more affordable plan worked well for them.
Because we give, I don't remember what we give our support staff, but it's significantly less than the teachers in terms of paying the premium.
Correct, and having a cap rather than a percentage,
Yeah.
with the rate increase, they're kind of eating all of it.
Okay.
Do we have an estimate of how many people, how many families are planning to take the lower rate options?
No, that'll happen during, because right now it's just been the negotiating
Okay.
team. That'll happen during open enrollment, and we're gonna have somebody from Health Trust available to discuss the different options and what that'll look like for them, so they can make an informed decision.
So open enrollment is typically November, December timeframe.
Well,
Is
since
that
since we're on a fiscal year, it's before July 1st. So after the meeting, and before the end of the year, pretty much. End of the fiscal year.
So I would think at our next FudCom meeting, I can probably share details.
Back in, when, in April?
I guess
Yeah,
that
we're
would
not,
be-
yeah, we're not
'cause
meeting in March,
I was
so
thinking March, but
probably at the March meeting, they'll probably discuss, I would envision maybe a few more details about the plan itself. but- Okay,
And their contract is up for negotiation, no, it isn't next year, it's the year after.
correct. We're in year 2, this
Wow.
is for year 2.
Sounds like they had quite a negotiating team.
Do you want to say who was on the negotiating team?
For SAU,
Mhm.
Lauren DeGenero, myself, okay, I can get the board members' names because,
Yep.
Rob Mann, Beth Williams, I'm trying to remember because we were doing two at the same time, who was on it,
Yeah.
and Kate Stoll, that was the co-op group.
No, I was thinking of the support staff.
Oh. Okay, so thank you for that, Lance. I appreciate you being able to share what you could at this point. So that would leave our last agenda item this evening, which is on legislation. So there were a couple of things that I sent out. One of them was a letter regarding open enrollment. Today, House Bill 751 FN was, I'm not sure that they took a vote or not. I was looking for some headlines to see if there was some, something that came out of Concord. I didn't see anything, so I don't know what took place today. But what I did share with everyone was a letter,
What's the bill number?
House Bill 751 FN. I shared with everyone a letter that was put together by, I believe it was the Conval School District, just kind of explaining some of the concerns about statewide open enrollment and basically asking the legislators to kind of slow down a little bit and consider some of the issues that have been brought forward. Since this was added as a trailer bill to something that went through the House Health and Human Services and Elderly Affairs Division Committee, when the Senate voted on it, there was no public hearing, and it bypassed the public hearing on the House side as well. So I think that's why some of the school board took the route of putting this letter together, putting together a document of some unanswered questions and concerns, and sharing it among the SAUs, as I shared with all of you. The 4 pages of questions, I think, pretty much cover a lot of the concerns about, how students are tracked, how capacity is decided, how residency is decided, and things like that. So at this point, we'll just have to see how that flesh itself out and what the impacts would be.
And that's the letter or note that had a lot of signatures from a lot of
Yes,
towns,
there were just
including
under,
Hollis
there were just
and
under
Brookline.
600 signatures.
Yeah.
There were 57 SAUs across the state at the last time I pulled it, which was before today. And various boards and budget committees and things like that that also lent their support to it.
What was that bill number again?
House Bill 751 FN.
When I looked that up, it has to do with like outpatient care.
Yeah, it might, because it was something originally going through the House Healthcare and Human Services, and as a
And the
trailer
Senate
bill.
is looking to change.
If
Yeah,
you,
all
you know
right.
what, instead of going to Legiscan, if you go just on the browser and put House Bill 751 FN amended, you might be able to find it, but every time they make an amendment, it is just difficult to find that language anywhere, honestly. So,
So who's really pushing for this? I'm always interested in
well,
who's behind it, because that helps me understand the context, right?
Well, the legislative majority is pushing for it.
But why? I mean,
Why? Chaos?
no, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
but I thought that the way our representatives work, Senate and House, is that they try to leave everything up to the cities and towns and not to impose unless it's something
Yeah.
that's really required.
Yeah.
And
So-
I thought that was the general premise.
no, that's really not happening.
No.
And you could tell that by the topics that I'm going to raise.
Yeah.
But there were open enrollment bills last cycle. The one that passed kind of led to the language of the article that we have in the warrant, which basically, it started with schools could be open enrollment, can designate themselves as open enrollment schools, but you could only, students could only move between schools that had designated themselves as open enrollment schools. So that seemed pretty clear cut. If you don't designate yourself, the students can't move, fine. there was a lawsuit because a student wanted to move to a district that had not designated themselves as open enrollment. A judge allowed it and said, nope, you can do it anyway. And the only way, I think based on the ruling, basically said the only way you can, I don't want to.
There's no way to opt out of it.
Right, so the way to set a clear position for your district is to come up with wording like what's being put forward. So if the open enrollment legislation as it stands as going into the session today passed, it would have said it's open enrollment within the state, across the state. Districts would have to pay 80 to 100% of the receiving district's cost per pupil. But if it exceeded your own district's cost per pupil, then parents would have to pay the difference as tuition. Special education is the responsibility of the sending district. Special education costs are the responsibility of the sending district. Transportation is the responsibility of the parent, but they could take the student to a designated bus stop in the district. And I feel like there was one more thing. What's the fourth thing? That was that's the gist of it. But there are a lot of issues, like what's included in 4 pages of unanswered questions about, what is resident, based on some of the terms used in the bill itself, what does residency really mean, and enrollment, and, and a lot of the points brought up for special education were important because, every district doesn't have the same type of special education programs. We're very fortunate here in this SAU with very, I think, creative and forward-thinking team, and so the programs are very creative, and I don't know that all of them exist in the same way in other districts, so does that mean, but people might still want to, who knows, there are so many, the point is there are so many issues, it's something that shouldn't be, I think the point of the letter was it's something that shouldn't be addressed as a trailer bill with no public hearing. It should be addressed and kind of go through the normal route. Having said that, there are pieces of legislation in that however many page document that I shared that do address open enrollment. So even if this were to have not passed today or whatever, there are other bills that need to be,
And you would think
through.
at some point they would be consolidated into one basic story.
Well, but again, since this
Well-
kind of bypassed the process, it, I don't know what happens to the legislative process, like, as a whole. So as soon as I have more information, I'll be happy to share that with everyone. I think another, and I can probably find it. The other one that was getting a lot of attention across the state was the consolidation of SAUs. I wish I could find. That is, I think, carrying over from another session, so maybe it's why it's not listed here. I don't know if you know that, Lance.
Chaos.
But there was I think I've shared that with you all earlier.
Yes.
So there's a plan to consolidate SAUs and you move superintendent and some business responsibilities to county level positions that are elected for the superintendent.
So there would
And-
be 12 rather than 107.
Exactly. Except in certain areas, like the cities, like that might be able to retain their structure or have 2, consolidate down to 2 instead of 1 or something like that.
1804. HB 1804.
1804, thank you. So that is still, I think that'll probably be the next thing that comes up after open enrollment. And the plan that was shared also includes information like how certain functions would then take place in a school district. A lot of responsibilities would fall to principals, and it just kind of really shift the structure of really kind of how SAUs are organized. So that's out there.
And you might have said this when I was looking up, also making superintendents an elected position.
Yes, making the countywide superintendent would be elected.
Whatever happened to the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Well, I guess some people feel like it's broken,
Yeah.
so.
So
And-
we haven't got any more information on that? Because that's one that I'm
Yes,
really
that one,
interested
the
in.
big push most recently has been on this open enrollment piece, and so that 1804 hasn't, I haven't heard anything about 1804, but I will look that up, and unless, Lance, you can see it, if it has a date associated with it, like a public hearing date. Again, it's a carryover, so I don't know how the public hearings work on that.
Yeah. Ugh.
I haven't heard that there's one.
Yeah, so I think it was a full court press on this other one. So I will look into that and get you whatever
How do we
information I can
find this stuff out?
Well,
It's impossible, isn't it?
it's
Or
difficult,
very
like the
difficult.
letter that went out was, disseminated among SAUs and shared with, and boards, and, boards were contacted directly and things like that. And it really is just, there are, the New Hampshire School Administrators Association puts out a tracking document, and it really just is incumbent on districts and committees and boards to track things as best that they can. And it's,
And one of those tracking sites also tells you the ones that they support and the ones that they
yeah,
don't.
so it'll, if you get to, so Legiscan is a good one, New Hampshire Legiscan.
What about School Boards Association? I thought that's
Yep.
what they were there for.
They do, but what ends up happening is they can identify all of these things and all of these bills, and you can look them up, and there'll be something, I did it tonight, I'm like, okay, this one went for a public hearing on this date. Nope, that got canceled, now it's on this date. I remember last year going in to put in electronic, my position individually on certain ones, thinking, okay, I know that this is gonna be there today, I have the bill number, I know the committee, I know everything, I go in, I'm like, no, not today. It's not, that committee isn't meeting, that bill isn't listed anywhere, and you just don't even know really how to find it. It's very, very difficult. So it really just is just a constant, almost the daily update of, okay, where are we today, and how do we just try to get
Is the
a
School
handle
Boards
on it?
Association sort of dysfunctional now?
No, they have, Barrett Christina has a full staff that still goes and offers input to as many as they can. They have, I think it's a small staff, but they still make it a priority, that's their job, and they are still doing
But they
that.
don't,
But,
they're not good at notifying people like us who,
well, budget
Would
committees
be
and school
excited
boards are
about
a
this?
little
What?
bit different.
no, well, school boards though, even if it was coming through to the school board,
Yeah,
and
I think
we
they're,
can piggyback off that.
I think they're
but-
doing the best that they can. There are a ton, well, let me give you a prime example. Tracking things through the School Boards Association last year, there were at least 5 bills that never got put on the priority list, never made it. And the next update given said, well, here's how things ended up. Bing, 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 bing. The 5 that should have been on a list somewhere
They were under the radar.
that did things like, that did things like give 10 minutes of speaking time, do, all of these things that don't appear to, oh, what's the big deal if you give someone 10 minutes? Well, it is a big deal if you give someone 10 minutes, if you have 5 petition warrant articles and it adds an hour to your meeting when people are tired and it's been a long night. So like all of these things have impact. There were at least 5 that they did not highlight because they were busy tracking all of these other ones that had, the perception of a larger impact, and they get through.
You're describing a dysfunctional school board association to me, but that's okay.
No, I think, no, and I'm not
Well,
trying to,
that's
no,
what
I'm not trying
well-
to say they're dysfunctional. I'm saying there is
I
so
don't
much
mean you're
to,
intentionally doing it, but that's what's filtering up there.
I think there's so much to track that you cannot possibly track it all.
Part of the problem here is that in the legislature, if some bill, gets too much traction or whatever, it goes away for some reason, other legislators can take that language and attach it to some completely unrelated bill, which is exactly what happened. And this other thing is, the one that we were discussing earlier had to do with outpatient care or something
Yeah.
like that. It had nothing to do with the schools. But the Senate, will come in and they'll attach any sort of language to any sort of bills they've got for it. On the odd numbers years, you'll find a lot of the stuff attached to the budget. And the budget comes by, and a lot of stuff that got killed comes back in the budget as riders on the budget. That's the budget one. Okay, it's going to be there. It's hundreds of pages long, but it's going to be in there somewhere. But you have to find all the others. you either have to have somebody who sits on every single committee that will tell you about this, or you have to go in and look at, okay, they're looking, here's a bill to regulate cosmetology, and maybe there's something about schools that's being tacked into that in the middle of the process that it didn't start off with.
Yeah.
It's hard to track. It is hard to
Then
track.
there was one earlier this session, I mean, we're only in the very beginning, the beginning of February. There was one about mandating budget caps for school districts across the state, and if it passed, it was gonna be immediate, and it would have impacted this cycle. As, districts are in the middle of building budgets and things like that. That was defeated.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it is. So so one of the other ones that got through was the non-voting school board member on cooperative
Yeah,
school
yeah.
district budget committees.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Now there's another one coming around that makes any ex officio member on any budget committee non-voting. So even at the municipal level, the school board member would be a non-voting member at the municipal, like on the municipal budget committees. So the previous one was only for cooperative school districts.
Oh,
Now they're gonna apply it to municipal budget committees.
So what is that? I'm sorry,
That's
can you
House Bill
explain
1137.
it? Can you explain it once again?
Okay, so that one is actually up for a public hearing on the 17th. I did manage to find that today. And that makes any ex officio member a non-voting member.
Ex officio?
Means,
So the school board member of the town budget committee.
So for example, the Hollis Budget Committee, there is a select board member and a school board member that's appointed by their boards, so they weren't elected to the seats.
Yeah.
They currently are voting members, so as
I
we
see.
go through this whole process, anything that's, takes a motion, they would cast a vote. If this passes, they will no longer be voting members. So if you recall, when that first came out, there's still a responsibility of the boards to send people there, but it was, we greatly value the input of the school board and at the municipal level of the select board as well. And this is now just taken that one step further. Now that would be on municipal budget committees. I don't think I'll get through all of these. I'll put them in a list for everyone. These, without reading, Tom, how many pages was this document that I sent you?
122.
Great, without reading
I got to
100.
page 12, actually.
Without reading 122, Control F is your friend, and I really was searching for things that affected
CTF.
apportionment, cooperative school boards or school districts, special education, adequacy, budget, committee composition, things like that, and trying to get to a New Hampshire retirement system, any of those things that are kind of those bigger items. So that's where I found this non-voting member. I also found House Bill 1610, also a public hearing on the 17th. That would take, so right now we all have the retained fund balance legislation, and wording is in place that went from being instituted to a maximum of 2.5%, then a maximum of 5%. This language drops the maximum of 5% down to 2.5%, so it goes back to that, and makes it something that you have to put an annual article in your warrant. So right now, once you go up to the 2.5%, the boards make a decision in their meeting on, how that gets funded based on unreserved fund balance and things like that. And I would say pretty consistently across the SAU, we're always below the maximums. For the co-op, when it was first introduced, it was approved, the wording allowed 2.5%. The legislative body only approved 1%. And then we came back, and I think we're either at 2 or 2.5% for the co-op.
I can look.
Yeah, if you could look that up, because I
But
have to
the
remind
change
myself
should,
every
the change
time.
should be to be a warrant article rather than us proposing as part of the budget.
No, so that's different. So the
Okay.
retained fund balance, if you remember from our results, our reports, is that extra piece that does not lapse,
Yeah,
but it has to be, in effect, renewed annually by the district, by the school board.
Yeah.
And if enough if the unreserved fund balance is high enough and it is underfunded in 1 year, they could make the decision to fund it at a little bit higher level. But at least we have not approved it anywhere in the SAU for up to 5%. But that action can take place annually, has to take place annually by the school board. It is not an article in the warrant. The contingency that's in the warrant is annual and does lapse. It's different. This would make any money going to the retained fund balance have the percentage have to be reaffirmed on an annual basis through the warrant.
It is 2.5.
It's 2.5. Great, thank you.
The legislation or what we are?
No, what we
What we
have.
Oh, okay.
Right now, the legislation is 5.
Yeah.
And any district that had 2.5 or whatever percentage they had to put a warrant forward to increase it to 5. So just because the legislation changed to 5 didn't mean you automatically moved. You had to bring it forward. And some districts did it and some districts didn't. There is also another one that is House Bill 1319 that establishes a fiscal accountability committee. The membership, it cannot be comprised of anyone who serves on a school board, town administrative, or budget committee role. And it's to do the things that, in my opinion, budget committees do, which is evaluate the fiscal issues of
Fiscal
districts.
Accountability Board.
Fiscal Accountability Committee. So you can read the details about that. There was House Bill 1184, which talked about any no trespass orders being required a unanimous public vote of school boards. House Bill 1066 makes a stipulation for leases and specifically says that projects that expand buildings cannot be financed through leases. They have to be financed through bonds. And leases in general, if the amount of the lease is above $100,000, it has to have a 3/5 majority to pass instead of a simple majority. House Bill 1505 requires documentation of budget or tax cap. So if a budget or tax cap is passed, the school district would have to send documentation to the DRA to show how they met the budget or tax cap.
Is there any attempt to begin to combine things that kind of go together?
Yeah, these were the financial ones. I do have categories.
No,
that-
I mean beyond that, within the financial category, there are some of them that are related to one another.
Yeah, there are, but they're different bills. Everything I'm reading to is a different
But that's what
bill.
makes it
Yes.
hard to track all of this.
Yes, because as you get to adequacy aid, there were at least 4 that addressed the levels of adequacy and targeted aid. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that addressed special education. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that addressed catastrophic aid or special education aid, which is different than the special education amounts that are included in the adequacy formula. There were, and then these are the rest of these are kind of, just based on the topic. I think I picked maybe budget committee, and some of these are the things that came up. So there were some related to SB2, some, for House Bill 1137, withdrawal from a co-op. Right now, the withdrawal vote requires the town that's withdrawing and the cooperative district as a whole to vote on withdrawal. And if this were to pass, only the town that wanted to withdraw would vote. They'd need a 3/5 majority. This one was interesting.
That wouldn't pass legal muster. Now, I know that.
Look,
There's-
I'm just telling you
There's
what I read.
contractual obligations.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
that one wouldn't go.
This one was
Wow.
interesting. House Bill 1583, this really doesn't have to do with us as more municipality, but I just found it interesting. It would allow a municipality to set up a special assessment district. So like a subset of the community So if some special project needed to be done or something just in that part of the community, only those people would be assessed the financial impact of that. So, there was one.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well,
Well, like a community solar project, that would be an example.
Or like a road.
I can see that.
Or a
Well-
road, but, yeah, like a private road.
Maybe
that-
something that just benefits a particular neighborhood.
House Bill 1516 was requesting a change in the format of tax bills to identify the allocation of taxes by a chart, a pie chart, some means of helping people to understand how their taxes are allocated.
You know what I find wrong with all of this? Is that nobody's doing their but nobody's doing their analysis, or there should be some filters. And if you go past the filters, eventually then the legislation is looked at seriously. Otherwise, you're wasting everybody's time.
You know, and that's why things like this go through committees, and the committees say, okay, this is.
But the committees may not be doing the right job either, I mean.
And they kind of cast them aside, but I know some of them sound like, what, like, Darlene, this is nonsense, how could these pass? But sometimes they do. Sometimes we end up with ex officio members who become non-voting members of only cooperative budget committees. You know what I mean? So it's, because the focus is on these things that have larger impact, as opposed to just something that doesn't seem like that's such a big deal, but it is actually kind of a big deal.
I just wanted to note that on HB 1319, the fiscal accountability
Yeah,
group.
Committee.
Committee, yeah. So Diane Power is our representative. I don't think she's your representative, but she sponsored that bill. So I just, think that it's something to note.
there's another one sponsored locally, House Bill 1288, which allows for SAU budget caps. House Bill, because of the issues of Claremont, there are several bills addressing audits and requirements for audits, which are required annually by the DRA for every district to complete, but somehow we need lots of legislation to tell districts that their audits are required. So that's House Bill 13.
So the problem is that some districts are not doing audits.
The DRA requires them, like you can't get past certain points of software without saying you submitted your audit. So I'm not sure how those things happen, but anyway. And there were at least two bills that
She sponsored that one too.
talked about like emergency funding for districts with financial needs and issues. There are a couple of those. Like I said, there were a minimum of 4 bills that addressed, 3 that addressed adequacy and targeted aid, and there was one that's a House resolution to ask the judge that said that the state isn't funding things correctly to clarify the ruling, and I think to maybe direct the legislature of how to proceed or something like that. So that's a House resolution as opposed to a House bill. So as you can see, I will put these together because we talked about them and I mentioned them this evening to give you the overarching topics. I will do my best to see, it was quite frankly taking a really long time to just go through it and find the list, let alone find the fact that some of them are up for a vote next week. So once I give you the list, if anyone has any leisure time and wants to look up at least these, or
I will help you.
Thank you. There might be something else in here that is something that he feels important that I missed. I did look for something related to New Hampshire retirement, because in the past, there has been legislation for the state to absorb some of the New Hampshire retirement costs, which they used to cover. I didn't see anything like that this time around. So building aid is always a topic. The level of building aid is a topic, and there was also a bill, 1579, which would have established a committee to look for additional revenue sources for education. So they really do run the gamut. I appreciate your patience as I read through all that. I did it quickly. Happy to address any of them. I'll try to give you a little, highlight with one-liner about, what all of these are, but there's just a lot out there. So, and these were
Yeah.
just the education-related ones that I was shared, let alone everything else.
Yeah, it's helpful for you to review like that.
Mhm.
Some of them I was familiar with, but a lot of them I was not.
Right,
So how does, the general public even know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also, some of the things that we have to do now, like post those mandatory reports, put the, if you have a ballot, put the proficiency scores in advance of your operating budget article. Those are all things that are, I don't know how much they were tracked, but that's how we also end up with, everyone thinking an 18 by 24 piece of paper is the best way to, show information. And
We should investigate the use of AI, ChatGPT, or some version of that to maybe do some other filtering.
so,
I mean, for the bills?
Yeah, I mean, if you go into ChatGPT, say, tell me all these education budget related bills in New Hampshire for during this period, I bet you could get a quick.
But it's a snapshot, and it depends on the thing being smart enough to be able to look at the latest versions of every single bill and not just look at the titles.
I can tell you that at work, I use a tool like that very efficiently, and I've been playing with it just to learn what are the capabilities. And I recently had to fill out a form to request funds for a particular task. And I took it upon myself to write, why are we doing this, and what would be the outcome. And then I said, based on the form, I gave it just the titles of the rest of the pages. And I said, please fill the rest of it. And it came out with, no kidding, 90% version of what I would want. And then I took the time to very quickly adapt it to what I was trying to do. But my point here is, maybe we can explore some sort of quick search and filtering process to maybe be able to down select from the 200 and so
Well-
bills to the top 20, for example.
well, I shared that document with you, but if you would like to take that on, Raul,
Let me
Feel
play
free.
with it. Let me play with it.
that'd be great.
Yep.
That would be great.
Because I think that will be interesting what comes out of
Awesome.
this. No, but I mean, I've also spent some time with Legiscan, playing around with different things, and I've gotten used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm getting the sense that a lot of these bills, they don't make it to first base. I mean, and
But they
so
will.
Except
Yes,
in our
well,
legislature,
yeah.
they do.
so I'm
They used to not make it to first base. Now they're getting passed regularly, signed into law very regularly. So
So
you
I
have to take them seriously.
did find out that they didn't vote on the open enrollment
Oh,
today.
they
I
did not.
don't know why yet, but,
Okay,
yeah.
good to know. Thank you.
Maybe the governor stopped it.
Yay.
Signatures.
Yeah, just listening to all of these proposals, these bills that are hanging out there, I mean, they're all over the place,
yeah.
which is kind of a reflection of the community.
Mhm.
We have people that are all over the place and don't typically think through to the next step or two
Right.
what the ramifications are.
And you can even see in looking at some of these bills, there are bills that you would think, oh, there's only one person supporting that, like the one on the non-voting member of the non-voting school board member for the cooperative budget committee. It was one person put that forward, and it ended up going through. So you just never know. Others have 12, the maximum
Sponsors,
support,
yeah.
and then
Sponsors,
they
yeah.
end up not going through either. So you just really do never know.
My sense is if something is very simple and everybody understands it,
Yeah.
chances are it's likely to be accepted or denied quickly. But if something is very complicated and it dives into all sorts of details, it's kind of
I think where I just start to kind of lose my way is when they do get, set aside or inexpedient to legislate, and then, as we were just talking
Yeah,
about,
they
they get
disappear.
added on to, how does it come
Yeah.
back and get added
Yeah.
on as a
They
trailer,
disappear. Yeah, intentionally
So-
disappear.
Exactly.
One of our annual meetings, you could have someone that gets up and says we should, eliminate the co-op, get out of the co-op. They don't know what they're talking about, they know the ramifications, they don't know the cost involved. Then at the same meeting, you'll hear someone saying, we should make things bigger instead of smaller. Consolidate SAUs and put whatever, Hollis, Brookline, Inwood, Milford, Wilton, whatever that turns out to be. So someone wants down to the nitty-gritty, and someone wants bigger,
Right.
and they don't like what's going on either way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make sense of that?
To me, the thing that's most disheartening about all of this is the legislators who are putting in a lot of these bills never discuss it with the people in their own district who are being affected by it. When have we ever, ever had when any of our legislators come to one of our meetings to discuss the impact of something on the co-op budget? I doubt that any has ever gone to the school board. I'm not aware of legislators coming to the Brookline Select Board in many years, since probably Melanie was a state rep. They pass legislation, they introduce legislation and fight for it all the time. It has very negative impacts on our towns and our schools. They never discuss it with us. We usually find out about it after it's
After
been
the fact.
signed into law.
Yeah.
That's very frustrating.
Okay, well, we've gone through the agenda. We're ahead of schedule, which I'm sure everyone will appreciate. I don't have any other topics other than a reminder that our public hearing is next Thursday. It'll be a joint meeting with the school board here in the middle school library. And that'll be I'll get a draft of the presentation to everyone once I have it. And that's the next thing on the agenda.
None of the numbers on Article 1 through 5 changed, the
Nothing
ones that I
changed.
voted on?
No.
Okay.
And we'll make a note that you were in
Whatever
favor of
you can
everything.
do.
I just to say that,
I tried.
I wish I could have, yeah.
So will we vote on our,
Yeah.
how we
Yeah.
feel?
On recommending or
on the
not
recommendations
recommending.
next Thursday?
Mhm.
That's okay.
So that will be here in the middle school?
Yep.
Right, like we've done in the past?
Yep.
I have a question. In the ballot, in Hollis, Cindy Van Conen's running as, in the co-op, is she part of the board? Or is
Yes.
she,
Yeah, she's a board member.
so she's gonna be a rep to the budget committee next time? No?
No.
I
No,
thought there
she's
was
just running for a school board
Yeah,
seat.
she's running for the school board.
the school board, she is,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But she's unopposed too, so,
Does the
Yeah.
rep get appointed by the school, the rep to the budget, they get
Yes,
appointed
Right.
by the
yes.
school board?
and she was our rep prior
She
to
was our rep,
Tom
yeah,
Sullivan.
previously.
Okay.
And then
And
we've
Tom's-
had,
Right.
we had.
I don't know if Tom's
Cindy
running.
for a while, we had, Krista Whalen for a while.
Right.
Now, is Tom's seat up? Tom Solon's seat?
I don't know, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. So we'll see, yeah,
Yeah.
after
Okay.
the board reorganizes, we'll see who ends up being the appointed person, so, without any vote. So if there are no other topics for this evening, I appreciate everybody's your time this evening to just take it out of sequence a little bit. I think this was all important information, and I think it sets us up well for the meeting next week. So Tony, is there any readout you'd like to provide at this time?
Well, it was a very interesting meeting. We covered a lot of ground, thank you for that. And we had, my favorite were the first 6 articles, because they were no time at all. And then the rest of them required some discussions that I think were very good, helped us understand and see what we're up against and what we need to do for the public hearing. So those are basically my comments, without going into great detail, but I did make notes for myself. But I think I understand better. I think we all do, I hope so, because it was pretty clear the way you spelled it out for us. Appreciate it. So I think,
Great, well, with
That's the
that, thank you, I appreciate that, and I will take a motion to adjourn at 7:53 PM.
So moved?
From Brian, seconded by Raul. All those in favor?
Aye,
Unanimous, 600. Thank you very much.
Okay.
thank you.
I have an
Rich,
update.